Committee of Supply will now consider the estimates of the Department of Environment and Climate. Does the Honourable Minister have an opening statement?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Minister of Environment and Climate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon to all my colleagues that join us here today. I want to take a moment at the start to recognize and give appreciation to all the staff that work in the Environment and Climate Department, of which there are many. Of course, we have our senior staff, but there's also many that work in the field, testing water, testing pollution outcomes, and many different requirements that happen throughout the province on a daily basis. And without them, of course, we would find ourselves in an awful lot of trouble. So I recognize their efforts and their work, and I thank them for what they're doing. I had the opportunity to meet a number of the staff in Brandon, which was just a wonderful experience for me to learn and listen directly to staff that are getting the job done on a daily basis. What I'd like to do is also talk about some of the things that this department has accomplished and some things that were just recently accomplished, as well as some other things that we've been working on and look ahead to. Of course, last week we announced the expansion of the Manitoba watershed districts. That was a very successful announcement for us, as well as the enhancement of Lake Friendly Initiative, which is very important to Lake Winnipeg and our waterways. We also announced a $10.5 million in the Grow and Conservation Trust projects. We gave support to Take Pride Winnipeg for cleanup efforts that they do not only in Winnipeg, but they're starting to supply products for municipalities and areas outside of the perimeter. We announced in conjunction with our partners at Call to Recycle over 1 million kilograms of batteries diverted from landfills, which is a significant achievement. Educational initiatives for industry and students through the Conservation and Climate Fund. And of course, we announced the unprecedented new collaborative task force with the City of Winnipeg and my former colleague and good friend, Councillor Brian Mays, where we will focus on the North End Pollution Control Center to ensure that the project gets done and that everyone remains on the same page, working towards the same goal. We are very proud of this work and also some of the other work that has been done over the last several years in the Environment and Climate Department, not to mention the water strategy. This is the first strategy that was released since November, or since 2002. And we announced that strategy in November of 22, and we are looking forward to announcing the water management plan here in the next coming weeks. We, of course, continued our enhancement as announced with the watershed program. We have successfully implemented 6 of the 18 recommendations from the Office of the Auditor General Report on Provincial Oversight of Drinking Water Safety. In the past year, we have rescinded 15 boil water advisories, and we're very proud of that. And they were in effect for longer than 1 year, including 10 long-term boil water advisories that have been in effect for more than 5 years. We passed legislation to give Manitobans the choice to be able to purchase and use cosmetic pesticides already registered with Health Canada, and they can put them on their lawns. However, our department felt it was important to continue with the legislation that protects children and pets by continuing to restrict pesticide use at schools, childcare centers, and hospitals. We added on new restrictions of municipal playgrounds, picnic areas, dog parks, and provincial parks. We also completed the remediation projects through the Orphan and Abandoned Mine Site Rehabilitation Program at 2 high-risk mines, the Rattan Mine and the Sheridan Mine. The budget 2022 announced the additional investment of $50.7 million over the next 5 years to further expedite the remediation of these orphaned and abandoned mines. There's much more we will talk about, I'm sure, during the questioning with my colleagues that I'll be happy to share with not only you, Mr. Chair, but others as the proceedings progress.
And we thank the Minister for those comments. Does the critic from the official opposition have an opening statement? The member from Fort Garry.
We do not.
Okay, thank you. Under Manitoba practice, debate on the minister's salary is the last item considered for a department in the Committee of Supply. Accordingly, we shall now defer consideration of line item 12.1A contained in Resolution 12.1. At this time, we invite the minister's staff to join us at the table, and we ask that the minister please introduce the staff in attendance.
It's my pleasure to do that,
The
Mr.
Minister of
Chair.
Environment and Climate.
Oh, sorry. My pleasure to introduce the staff, Mr. Chair. We have Jan Foster, our Deputy Minister, Neil Cunningham, the Assistant Deputy Minister, Climate and Green Plan Implementation Office. We have Elliot Brown, the Assistant Deputy Minister, Water Stewardship Division, Shannon Kohler, Assistant Deputy Minister, Environmental Stewardship Division, and Todd Kalin, the Executive Financial Officer and Assistant Deputy Minister of the Finance and Shared Services Division. As well, we have Grant Jackson, Special Assistant from my office, joining us today.
Okay, thank you very much for the introductions and welcome to the table. According to our rules 78, bracket 16, during the consideration of departmental estimates, questioning for each department shall proceed in a global manner, with questions put separately on all resolutions once the official opposition critic indicates that questioning has concluded. Therefore, the floor is now open for questions. The member from Fort Garry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm wondering if the minister can tell us if he believes that pollution should be free or that a government should subsidize businesses and individuals who pollute.
The Honorable Minister of Environment and Climate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and my thanks to my colleague for the question, although it is somewhat leading. First and foremost, I think it's important to once again state that our government is hard on polluters, and we have been hard on polluters and will continue to be hard on polluters, and that we do not subsidize polluters. And I think that it's important also to get on the record that our department and our government believes in a polluter pay principle. However, that said, the government does need to be a partner to spur innovation in green solutions. It's an ever-changing market, and there's new concepts and opportunities that are coming forward on a regular basis that we have to make sure that we understand and that we work with others if it will help address polluters. In our department, licensing and permitting is the tool that we use to ensure pollution does not happen. We put conditions on all businesses to ensure pollution does not occur. And if it does, we hold them accountable. If we have to clean it up, we hold them financially accountable. Our government is taking steps, as evident with the mines, the orphan and abandoned mines that were left empty and dangerous to residents by the former NDP government, and we've invested money to address those and make the environment cleaner for all residents of Manitoba.
Member from Fort Garry.
I want to thank the minister for the response. I wonder if Manitobans should be concerned that it took him 10 minutes and an army of skilled professionals to come up with that. But I'm wondering if the minister can advise whether he has read his own government's Made in Manitoba Climate and Green Plan 2017.
Minister of Environment and Climate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just one comment off the top about my colleague's personal shot. I don't think it's necessary in these meetings that we try to attack each other personally. I think that we can be professional in this room, and I hope that we can be moving forwards. I, unlike a lot of people, take my time before responding. I do my due diligence because facts are important. I don't want to just throw out comments in hopes that they will stick or that I'm saying something that might work good on a video. Absolutely, I've read the Climate and Green Plan. I'm proud of the work that has been done on the Climate and Green Plan. It is one of the reasons I joined this government, especially with my track record at City Council, putting forward more motions to protect our environment than others in that 4-year period. And I'm proud of the fact that we have a whole of government approach and not just one department. We're looking at it as we should. I've had meetings with our Executive Advisory Council that is doing fantastic work, and I'm excited about the new members of the Youth Advisory Council and look forward to the next generation helping us in planning sustainable actions for our province. We must, of course, talk about the Expert Advisory Council and the fact that they have presented the next carbon savings account 2023-2027 goal of 5.6 megatons of cumulative reductions, and is working hard on delivering its mandate, including providing advice to the minister on the green economic recovery for the province. We must mention emission reductions and energy efficiency in the province are being supported with over 40 Efficiency Manitoba program incentives, increased biofuel mandates for transportation fuels, support for fuel efficiency in the heavy-duty trucking industry, and yearly decommissioning of fossil fuel generating stations by Manitoba Hydro. The Conservation and Climate Fund has grown from an initial $600,000 fund in 2020 to $1.5 million in 2022, supporting initiatives across the province and sectors that address climate changes and promote sustainable outcomes. Important policies and programs are under development to help Manitoba be competitive in the low carbon economy, of the future, and resilient in the face of climate changing, focusing on clean energy and transportation innovations, as well as adaptation work to support communities facing extreme weather challenges. We are getting the work done, listening to the experts, working with the experts to ensure a pristine environment for Manitoba today and well into the future.
Member from Fort Garry.
Well, I certainly share the minister's desire to have a respectful exchange this afternoon, but, you know, the minister sets the tone when he takes 4 minutes to answer a basic yes or no question. I don't think anybody would view that as respectful, so hopefully we can... So hopefully we can have a better exchange this afternoon. So does the minister agree with the plan? And is this plan still the guiding policy for the Stephenson government? Again.
Order, order, order. Minister of Environment and Climate.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and again to my colleague who continues to want to bring up the time that lapses in between questions. I believe ensuring that the answer I give to taxpayers is correct and factual is of the most importance. And heckling from NDP MLAs and trying to be bullied into answering quickly is just not necessary, and it's not going to change my approach to providing Manitobans with the facts. I'll do my due diligence to make sure that the answers I'm providing to taxpayers who are paying for this session get the facts. I certainly wouldn't want what was said about the former NDP government and the Winnipeg Sun to happen to us, where the Winnipeg Sun said the former government's climate change plan was fraudulent from the very beginning, driven almost entirely by government spin and propaganda. It had no basis in science, contained no real planning, and had no realistic mechanisms to reduce emissions. That's from the Winnipeg Sun. Of course, we believe in climate, and we believe that our document is a living document as it should be. As with all science and governments, we need to be able to pivot as opportunities in science changes. We are getting the job done, and I'm proud of the staff of Environment and Climate for the work that they're doing on a daily basis.
The member from Fort Garry.
Okay, so I want to just read a passage from the plan. It's page 8, if the minister wants to follow along. It's about, towards the end of the page, and it's talking about the climate pillars. And it says the climate pillars mission is to reduce GHG emissions, invest in clean energy, and ensure Manitoba adapts to climate change impact. It contains carbon pricing as a principal tool to help reduce emissions. So the basis of the Manitoba Green Plan under your government is carbon pricing. And so I'm wondering if the minister would agree with that statement and agree that that's a central focus for climate change plan in Manitoba is carbon pricing.
Minister of Environment and Climate.
I want to thank my colleague for his question. And we, as many people know, as the government of Manitoba, put forward a Made in Manitoba plan. And it was the NDP Liberal Coalition at the federal level that denied our Made in Manitoba plan, a plan that had evidence that showed it would lower overall costs to people, and it would reduce emissions in a greater capacity than that of the NDP Liberal Coalition in Ottawa. But as I said earlier, the document is living, and we had to pivot because of that decision. And we created not a brutal cost of living crisis that we're witnessing today, fueled by that NDP Liberal Coalition inflation. We didn't want that. The NDP Liberal escalating carbon tax has shown absolutely no evidence of reducing emissions, only reducing the amount of money Manitobans have at the end of the day. We continue to take actions. There are over, we've already started 115 government-wide initiatives. We've blended fuel requirements and reduced 500,000 tons of emissions. The efficient trucking program reduced 100,000 tons. 77% of natural gas savings target reduced 50 tons over 2 years. I'm proud of the work that we're getting done, and I'm proud of our approach.
Member from Fort Garry.
Page 13 of the report, a carbon levy is simpler and more effective for Manitoba. It can cover more emissions in our economy, leading to more reductions. Page 14 of the report, the Manitoba government has committed to introducing carbon pricing to help tackle climate change. So the minister makes the incredible statement that carbon tax, there's no evidence it reduces emissions, yet his own report that he supports says that is the principal area for reduction. So I'm wondering if he could clear up that confusion. Does he believe a carbon tax, which he says is the method to be used in Manitoba, doesn't work?
Minister of Environment and Climate.
Thank you to my colleague for the question, and for the record, I understand the wordplay game, but I did not say I believe a carbon tax works. In fact, what I was insinuating and saying is that good management is a group of people and an organization that has the ability to pivot and make change when necessary. And that's what we need in government, is good management. And good management that was able to pivot from our proposed offer to the NDP Liberal coalition, which would have lowered the overall cost to the residents of Manitoba, the people who pay our salaries, and would have reduced emissions by a greater amount than the NDP Liberals have put forward. Our plan that is referenced there was not accepted by the NDP Liberals. They simply wanted to tax the consumers more, which they have done, which they continue to do, and that has created, as any financial analyst will tell you, that has created the affordability crisis that we have not only in Canada, but in Manitoba.
The member from Fort Garry.
So the minister knows full well that he could bring forward a Made in Manitoba carbon plan tomorrow, and that would supersede the federal backstop, and that this government has been in power for 7 years and is in the driver's seat when it comes to what type of carbon tax we have in Manitoba. But instead of putting in a Made of Manitoba carbon tax, this government has deferred to the federal government. So I think it's a little rich to call it a Liberal NDP coalition. It sounds more like a Liberal PC coalition and a Liberal PC carbon tax, because this minister has the power, has the authority to make it his own, and refuses to do so. And the only conclusion that Manitobans can take from this is that he's very happy with the federal Liberal carbon tax. So I'm wondering if the minister could answer the question, because he's now said two things. Does he actually believe a carbon tax works? Because in an earlier response, he said it didn't. Does it work? Does it not work? And why haven't you brought in your own carbon tax?
How many questions?
Minister of Environment and Climate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In response to my colleague's question, I'm not sure, but I believe what my colleague is saying, that the NDP are going to raise the carbon tax immediately, and I guess the PST, because that's what I'm hearing. And no matter how you spin the wording, people do remember that the NDP committed to the Climate Change and Emissions Reduction Act to legally bind Manitoba to reduce emissions by 6% below 1990 levels by 2012. And the fact is that it's irrefutable that the NDP failed miserably and didn't come close to that. Members know the provincial plan, any provincial plan put forward to the federal government, has to be greater than that of the federal tax. That's the plan of the NDP Liberal Coalition. Make the taxes higher and we'll agree with it. This government is taking a balanced approach to reducing emissions while making sure that we support Manitobans through an unprecedented cost of living crisis. What we're hearing is let's tax people and hope that brings down our emissions, and that's something this government will not support.
The member from Fort Garry.
Yeah, it's disappointing that the minister's using his time to sort of give us all a master class in gaslighting. It's a very simple question, Minister. You have the power to bring in a carbon tax that you like, and you're refusing to do it. So are Manitobans taking from that you enjoy the PC Liberal carbon tax and want to keep it in place?
Just before I call on the minister on that one, just a reminder, order. Just a reminder for those asking and answering questions, please channel them through the chair and not direct at each other, please. And with that, we'll call on the Minister of Environment and Climate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, very much for that. There's no question there. It's just a political statement that has absolutely no fact to it whatsoever. So I'm not going to entertain answering a statement. I'll answer questions about the budget.
Member from Fort Garry.
So what is this government's alternative to the PC Liberal carbon tax?
Minister of Environment and Climate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If we could get some clarity, I'm not aware of any PC Liberal carbon tax, so if the member could explain what he's talking about, that would be helpful.
The member from Fort Garry.
Well, can the minister please outline what this government's alternative would be to the current carbon tax, given that their previous offering was rejected? And am I and the rest of this committee to believe that there actually isn't an alternative on the table and that this government is tired and out of ideas and they have nothing to offer Manitobans?
Minister of Environment and Climate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to my colleague for the question. I think being repetitive is necessary sometimes to ensure that we all understand the facts. And again, as we've said on a number of occasions now, the fact is the NDP Liberal Coalition demands that a carbon tax be higher than theirs in order for a province to change it. So they are demanding that it be higher. We do not believe in that. What I think I'm hearing is that the member opposite and the NDP are more than willing to increase carbon tax on Manitobans almost immediately, along with that of the PST. However, this government is taking action, and we're getting real results in carbon emission reductions. And I'll just give you a couple of examples. The efficient trucking program will save 25 million liters of fuel and reduce GHG emissions over the life cycle of the equipment. And Manitoba Hydro's last coal-fired generating unit was shut down, and the natural gas units in Selkirk were phased out, all ahead of schedule in 2021. These actions have reduced greenhouse gas emissions by over 56,000 tons. Maybe the member opposite could tell us today what the plan is for the NDP. How high are you going to increase the carbon tax if you're given the opportunity?
Member from Fort Garry.
I think the minister has made it perfectly clear that he supports the PC Liberal carbon tax and will not make changes in Manitoba. So I will move on because life's too short. I want to ask the minister some questions about CO Silica mine. As he's aware, that mine would remove sand over 2 large freshwater aquifers that supply drinking water to southeast Manitoba. The company is wanting to use an experimental technique that has never been used before, and experts are concerned that there will be contamination between the 2 aquifers that'll pollute the drinking water for that region. As the minister, you have the final say on the project, regardless of whatever recommendations the Environment Commission comes up with. I've certainly asked you numerous times in the House that the residents of southeast Manitoba are worried about their safe drinking water supply, and this government can make a commitment to them that regardless of what the Commission reports or regardless of those recommendations, that this government will stand with southeastern Manitoba and guarantee safe drinking water supply. And I'm wondering to the minister why he has refused probably half a dozen times now to answer that question and why he won't commit to safe drinking water for southeast Manitoba.
Minister of Environment and Climate.
Once again, Mr. Chair, maybe my colleague can be more clear as opposed to trying to put false statements on the record about my inability or unwillingness to answer a question which is not true. Could he be clear on what the question is? Because I'm not sure he's asked a question yet.
Member from Fort Garry.
Slower for the minister. My question for the minister is,
You're better than that.
will he, on the record today, guarantee to the residents of southeast Manitoba that regardless of what the recommendations are from the Environment Commission, he will guarantee safe drinking water to those residents?
Minister of Environment and Climate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I notice my colleague is getting a little angry, and again going off with some comments that aren't becoming of a professional, and there's some heckling now. I think it should be known that it was this government that called on the Clean Environment Commission to take a deeper look into the proposed CO Silica mines. Nobody has made any decision. In fact, our government is listening to the experts, and that's something that is unfamiliar to the members opposite who ignored the Clean Environment Commission when they were told decades ago that the North End treatment plant had to be upgraded. They ignored it. They kicked it down the road. They also ignored scientists, and they ignored the facts when they went ahead with the Kiosk project. So I'm not going to sit here and get into a wordplay game for the sake of somebody's video on social media. The facts are, and these are the facts, and they're irrefutable no matter what you hear. No licensing decision will be made until the project is thoroughly reviewed and the evidence can be fully considered by experts, not pretend politicians who think they have all the answers. We will go to the experts and get the answers. And I can tell you that not only my track record as a city councillor to get phosphorus out of going into Lake Winnipeg, but our premier and this government's promise is to keep our water supply clean and protect the environment. Those are our top priorities, not spin, not personal political gain. We will do full due diligence, and that will occur during the licensing process. And again, to be clear, no licensing decision will be made based on politics. It will be based on science and the health of Manitobans.
Member from Fort Garry.
There are families now who have poured their life savings into properties in this community and don't know whether the bottom is going to fall out on their property values because they fear that their safe drinking water will become unsafe. There are families who thought that they were going to spend a generation in that community who are selling and leaving for fear that their water will not be protected and it will not be safe. There is panic in the community because of this issue. The government could responsibly ease that panic by making a very public, very verbal statement that they support the residents of Southeast Manitoba, and you will guarantee that they will have safe drinking water no matter what the decision ultimately is made. It should not be a difficult matter for any government minister to make that commitment. And my question to this minister is, why won't he make that commitment to Southeast Manitoba?
Minister of Environment and Climate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I think it's very important, given the line of questioning, that we get something on the record. The minister is not able to just sign away and make a decision on their own. There's nobody watching this or that will read about this hearing that wants a politician to make those kinds of decisions. And that is why this government sent it to the Clean Environment Commission, the very commission that my colleagues in the NDP ignored on more than one occasion. They ignored the science, they ignored the experts. We are listening to people's concerns. We heard from hundreds and hundreds of people through the Clean Environment Commission, those that are opposed, those that are in favor. We heard from stakeholders, we've heard from scientists, which is why we required more and more discussion on this particular matter because we will make the right decision. And again, it's not a minister's decision. In fact, we have nonpartisan civil servants and a director that are experts in the field that take their job and the lives and safety of Manitobans seriously. They don't play politics by trying to scare people. They don't play politics by spinning the facts. They are there to do their job. And their job is to review all the evidence, to review all the concerns of those for and those opposed to this project, and they will bring forward a decision, which at that time can also be appealed. So as opposed to getting into the politics of this because of a pending election, the facts speak for themselves. No licensing decision will be made until the project is thoroughly reviewed and evidence can fully be considered by experts.
Member from Fort Garry.
Can the minister provide an update on the timeline for a decision on the CO Silica Mine environmental license, and will a decision be made before the election?
The Minister of Environment and Climate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank my colleague for the question. A very reasonable question, I might add. But unfortunately, I feel there's an undertone of politics being played to see if it can be twisted into a video. So let me put some facts on the record. This is certainly, like my answers that he was unhappy with, take time to research, to review, to have the experts look at. But most importantly, now that the Clean Environment Commission has completed their stakeholder engagement and that they are working on their report, we now have started Section 35 consultations, which the members opposite are well aware of, and I know that they respect that process to hear from all of our Indigenous leaders and communities about the impact on the potential mine, if you will. We know that in the past, my colleagues of the NDP did not respect the Indigenous wishes when they went ahead with Kiask. They did not do those consultations, but I assure residents in the area and all across Manitoba that we will take the time to listen to our Indigenous communities and their leaders. We will review in detail all of the information that comes forward from the Clean Environment Commission, and that this will not be a political-based decision, which is kind of where I think the question is leading, but that's my opinion. The reality is we have experts, nonpartisan experts, scientists, and those people will consider all of the information that comes forward. And again, I want to go back to the most important part of this, because Manitobans need to know the facts. No licensing decision will be made until the project is thoroughly reviewed and evidence can be fully considered. The safety of Manitoba's water, every drop, is our main concern.
The member for Fort Garry.
When I'm asking these questions to the minister, certainly on behalf of the residents of Southeast Manitoba who are worried about having to move their children because they could not have a safe source of drinking water, they certainly want a resolution to this, and I think it would strain credulity to believe that the minister's department doesn't have timelines and that they don't know when this is going to wrap up. It's a simple yes or no answer. Will we have a decision before the election? Yes or no?
Minister of Environment and Climate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And again, we'll stay on this merry-go-round and continue to put the facts on the record, because we're leading into a more political line of statements than actual questions regarding the budget. This is about the budget and how much money of taxpayer hard-earned money we're going to spend protecting the environment and the actions we're going to take. But it's clear that this is more of a campaign-style election form, if you will. And we've heard clearly that our members on the opposite, the NDP, just want to increase the carbon tax. And in this case, they're clearly have no regard for the residents of the area, because they're happy to instill fear. I respect the people that work for the Climate and Environment Department. I know that they're nonpartisan. I respect that they're nonpartisan, and I respect the process, which I would hope all elected officials do. We may not like the speed at which the process goes, but it's important to the residents that we follow this process, and it's equally as important that we respect the Indigenous leaders and community members through the Section 35 consultation. We are not going to rush our Indigenous communities. We are going to give them the same time and the respect that they deserve to provide comment, just like we did the Clean Environment Commission. I think that people in that area do trust the process. They don't trust the fact that when the members opposite, the NDP was in power, Lake Winnipeg, Lake Manitoba, and Lake Winnipegosis fisheries were declared the worst managed in the world by Seafood Watch. They don't trust the fact that Lake Winnipeg was declared the most threatened freshwater lake in the world while the members opposite were in charge. We will take our time. We will review all of the evidence. We will review all of the science, and we will not make a decision until such time as we are confident in the decision that will be announced.
Member from Fort Garry.
Wondering if the minister can explain why he's refusing to tell the residents of southeastern Manitoba whether they'll get a decision before the election?
Minister of Environment and Climate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Again, I want to, and I'll use this if they put out a video, get back on the record that this is about the budget, about how we spend your money, and obviously the members opposite do not care how your money is spent, and they have no interest in knowing how your money is spent. They simply are looking for political fear-mongering and for the ability to increase not only the carbon tax, but the PST at the first opportunity.
The member from Fort Garry.
Do you think that answer would satisfy the residents of southeastern Manitoba?
Again, I'm going to just remind the member to put the questions through the chair and not in third party, please. Minister of Environment and Climate.
Again, as we talked about at the start, it's very politically motivated. Our government has been very, very clear with residents, and our track record speaks for itself. The members opposite track record, the NDP, also speaks very loudly about their inability to care for the environment. They ignored the Clean Environment Commission, which is why we are facing billions of dollars in cost, and we continue to put phosphorus and other chemicals into Lake Winnipeg because members opposite, the NDP, ignored the science, ignored the Clean Environment Commission. They ignored the Indigenous communities and science. They didn't even ask for approval with Kiosk, costing you millions upon millions of dollars. The health and safety of all Manitobans is our priority. And that's why this government called on the Clean Environment Commission to listen to hundreds and hundreds of residents, real people, not made up people for a political question, real people that were able to put their thoughts, concerns on the record. They were heard. And all of those thoughts and concerns will be considered by the experts as well as those of our Indigenous leaders and communities through the Section 35 consultation. I think it's really unbecoming of an elected official to say, well, we're going to make a decision or not because we're the guys in power and we're going to do that. That's our ability. That's not what we're here for. We're here to make sure that the right decision is reached based on evidence and fact.
The member from Fort Garry.
Has the minister spoken with those real people that are speaking out against the CO Silica mine due to the potential risk of contaminating their water?
Minister of Environment and Climate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And once again, we are not talking about how we spend taxpayers' money. It's obvious, it's evident that the members opposite NDP don't have any concern about how money is spent. They simply will raise the carbon tax that we've heard during these meetings. They're happy to raise the carbon tax immediately, and of course we know the PST would be raised shortly after they get the opportunity. The member opposite should know that an environmental review process has already been done with the public. Our department takes public input very seriously. In fact, that was done prior to the Clean Environment Commission, because our experts, our civil servants, the people that are paid to work for taxpayers in Manitoba and to take their safety seriously, heard during the environmental review process that some were very concerned. That's why our government made the decision to engage the Clean Environment Commission. We wanted to give residents another opportunity to share their concerns and their fears. We're not fear-mongering them like some others. We're listening and giving more opportunity for people to speak, unlike the members opposite of the NDP who ignored the Clean Environment Commission, who ignored Indigenous communities, who ignored scientific facts when they went ahead with Kiask, when they refused to replace the North End treatment plant, which has been polluting Lake Winnipeg for decades because they ignored the science. Our civil servants, the dedicated individuals who are educated in this, they are the experts in this field, are listening to residents. And now that we've done the review process where we listened to all the people and we took what they said and we sent it to the Clean Environment Commission, now we're listening to the Indigenous communities through our Section 35 consultations, which is required and is necessary. And we will give them the time and respect they deserve to provide their feelings towards this project. And again, I would ask my colleague not to fearmonger here. We are taking the process of using experts and not playing politics with it.
Member from Fort Garry.
I wonder if the minister can tell the committee what question he was answering?
Minister of Environment and Climate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I've been answering the same question he's asked about 15 times trying to make a political statement.
Member from Fort Garry.
Wondering if the minister can tell us what question he was answering?
Minister of Climate, or Environment and Climate.
This is like being in school again and taking Legal 101. Asked and answered.
Member from Fort Garry.
Ask the question again, because the minister obviously didn't register with him. Has he personally met with the residents that are speaking out against this CO Silico mine due to the potential risk of contaminating the drinking water? Yes or no?
Minister of Environment and Climate.
Mr. Chair, again, for the residents that are in that area that are concerned about this process, I'm not going to play these games. I'm not going to politicize your health. I'm not going to politicize this decision. I'm going to ensure you, on behalf of our government and my colleagues, that we take this very seriously. We will continue to take this seriously and not play political games with it. We will listen to the experts from the Clean Environment Commission. We will listen to our Indigenous communities and leaders, and we will allow our experts to do their due diligence before any decision is made. It is unnecessary and unbecoming to make this a political game.
Member from Fort Garry.
The fact that the minister won't meet with these residents is political. Will the minister commit today and now to meet with the residents who are affected, directly affected by this potential risk of contamination of drinking water?
Minister of Environment and Climate.
I appreciate, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate my colleague changed it from his false statement of saying that I refused. Again, I'll explain this to the residents there because that's what's important to me. How my colleagues use videos is not important to me. What's important to me is the residents in that area that are concerned and those that are in support of this project. I want to make it very clear yet again. We have listened We have listened through the environmental review process. We heard that there were concerns, and our experts said because there was concerns, they suggested we send it to the Clean Environment Commission, which we did. That's a fact. It's irrefutable. No matter what is said, that's a fact. We sent it to the Clean Environment Commission, where residents, hundreds of people, got the opportunity to once again share their concerns or support for the CO Silica Mines project. Now, as the Clean Environment Commission prepares their report and puts it together for review of the experts, we are now following Section 35 consultations, which will allow our community, Indigenous leaders and their communities to also share their support or their fears with the project. We are doing what you want us to do as a government. We're managing the process properly. We're not playing politics. We will not make a decision until we have the evidence in front of us and the experts have reviewed all information from all of these various reviews and consultation processes.
Member from Fort Garry.
I think anyone watching this hearing and hearing the evasive and non-responsive answers of the minister can only come to one conclusion, that he has not met with these individuals, nor will he commit to meet with these individuals. And if I'm wrong about that, please correct me on the record. Has the minister attended any Clean Environment Commission hearings himself?
Minister of Environment and Climate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And again, during this time that's been allotted through taxpayers' money, we're not talking about the budget, we're playing politics. The member opposite should know, and probably is not aware, given the actions of his leader recently, that the Clean Environment Commission is a non-partisan process. That in fact, government officials should not be present, that we should allow the experts to listen to the residents, which we did. And we allow them to speak freely, not be inhibited if they feel they are, or that it be seen that we're trying to interfere, as the members opposite and NDP have been noted to do in the past through media reports. We know that they don't respect the Clean Environment Commission. We have proof of that by them ignoring the Clean Environment Commission when it would have only have cost $300,000 to replace the North End treatment plant that the Clean Environment Commission heard from residents, heard from experts, must happen. It had to happen at that time, and they ignored the Clean Environment Commission. We will not do that. We will take these consultations seriously. We will talk to the experts, and we will make an intelligent decision based on the facts. We will not ignore science like our members opposite did when the NDP went ahead with Kiosk, costing millions and millions of dollars that your grandkids and their grandkids will be paying for years to come. We will listen to the experts. More importantly, we will ensure the safety for all Manitobans and their drinking water. To this government, every drop counts, and you will be safe, and the decision will be based on scientific fact and evidence.
Member from Fort Garry.
Will the minister commit today on the record to attending to Vivian, Manitoba, and to touring the affected land sites with the area residents to hear firsthand their concerns?
Minister of Environment and Climate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Once again, it's more evidence of trying to insert a politician into making a decision, and I respect Manitobans far too much to let a politician make a decision when it impacts the health and safety of drinking water. I would call on the experts and the scientific evidence to make any decision. The mere mention or thought of a politician making that decision, quite frankly, that's the biggest fear to me. And I think that's what we're hearing from the member opposite, because the NDP has done that before. They've ignored science. They've ignored the experts. They've ignored residents. They've ignored our Indigenous communities when they went ahead with Kiosk. They didn't even ask. They just went ahead and did it. That is not something we will do. And I also want to add that I believe, Mr. Chair, the statement that affected land is somewhat argumentative. The member is indicating that based on some scientific expertise that the member opposite might have, that they know it's affected land. It's a generalization statement, and we know that generalizations are not what residents want. They want facts. In fact, we know that this is an independent, non-partisan process. And furthermore, we know, we've seen the evidence that the members opposite and the NDP have no respect for residents. In fact, we know that the Winnipeg Sun reported that the former government's climate change plan was fraudulent from the very beginning. Very beginning, Mr. Chair. Driven almost entirely by government spin and propaganda, Mr. Chair, which one would argue we're seeing today. It had no basis in science. This is the NDP, the member opposites were being told this by a Winnipeg Sun article. It contained no real planning and had no realistic mechanisms to reduce emissions. Our plan is to protect your safety and your drinking water, and we will follow this process. We will not rush it. I would be happy to tour the area with our staff, and in fact, I will put that on my summer to-do list, because I want to make sure that people understand the truth. They understand the facts, Mr. Chair, and that is we are listening to them and we are listening to experts.
Member from Fort Garry.
Well, we made some progress this afternoon that the minister's prepared to go out there and tour it with his staff. I'm wondering if he would add the actual residents who are concerned to his tour schedule. But I'll ask another question to the minister. Has the minister or any of his staff or ministry staff met or had any discussions with representatives of the CO Silica mine directly?
Minister of Environment and Climate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. It is a necessity of all elected officials to meet with organizations and residents to hear about proposed projects for the province, to hear concerns, and to ensure that everyone is aware of our policies and legislation as things move forward. This is a common courtesy, and it's a traditional business practice that we do listen and that we do meet, unlike our NDP friends, members across the floor who ignored everyone, including scientists and Indigenous communities, when they went ahead with Kiosk. Our government does listen, and we will listen. And in fact, it's part of the process. We have heard concerns from the members of public and stakeholders regarding the potential impact of the silica extraction process. We will not make a decision, and we will not make it political until all the facts and evidence are in. And this is something that I think is most important to all residents to know, that we're not going to make this political. We're not going to make a decision without facts, like the members opposite have proven time and time again to just ignore. That's why the former Minister of Environment and Climate did request the Clean Environment Commission to conduct an independent technical review and hold public hearings to fully understand the project and any potential environmental impact so that they could be considered by the experts that serve on our civil service. These are experts that take great pride in their job, that are well educated, and that care about your safety, not politics. That's what we're hearing here today is politics. The Clean Environment Commission has completed 2 independent technical reviews and held the public hearings in February and March. Because our former Minister of the Environment and Climate demanded that and requested that after our environmental review process where we were listening to you, to residents in Manitoba. This was the next step. We're not taking this lightly. Everything will be done in a proper process. We will talk to all parties, opposed and in support. We will listen to our Indigenous communities and our leaders. No licensing decision, despite any of the spin that you might hear, no licensing decision will be made until the project is thoroughly vetted, reviewed, and that the evidence can be fully considered and confirmed. This decision will be based on what's best for Manitobans, not political parties.
Member from Fort Garry.
I wonder if the minister can tell us how many meetings or discussions has he had with CO Silica Mine, him personally, any of his staff, the ministry staff. Give us a ballpark. Is it 20 occasions? Is it 100 occasions? Is it 150 occasions?
Minister of Environment and Climate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There was about 50 questions in there. Can the member opposite be clear? If he wants to ask about each person in the staff separately, I'd be happy to answer those questions. But this was a kind of again, one of those generalization statements that would be used for political pundits. So maybe we could get some more specifics, and then I would be able to answer the question fully and properly.
Member from Fort Garry.
Will do. So how many opportunities has the minister actually met or spoken with CO Silica Mine?
Minister of Environment and Climate.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for that, for rephrasing the question so I can answer it directly. None. I've never met with them.
Member from Fort Garry.
How many opportunities has your staff either met or had conversations or discussions with representatives of CO Silica Mine?
Minister of Environment and Climate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I may, could the member opposite again be more clear? We have a number of staff in the Environment and Climate Department, and obviously he's on a fishing expedition, so maybe we could get a more precise question that is important to the residents of Manitoba. Is this part of the process? Is he asking if we've met outside the process? I mean, he's just making a generalized statement, and generalizations are not appropriate for this type of hearing.
Member from Fort Garry.
Well, I'll begin with your political staff, those that are hired by the ministry's office, and then provincial government staff. I would like to know the numbers for each of those different units that work with you.
Minister of Environment and Climate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks to my colleague for that question. I can certainly speak to the political staff since I became Minister of Environment and Climate, and can confirm that none of our political staff have met with any of the people from CO Silica. As for government staff, as the member knows, and that's why this is what they call a, we used to call it in the media, a fishing expedition, leading questions from politicians. It was quite fun watching from the stands. Government staff meet with, as I said earlier, all organizations and speak to residents that have concerns. It's part of their job. We certainly want to make sure that we're providing clear information on regulations. We want to make sure that we're providing clear information on not only the regulations, but also the legislature. And often people will call us on a couple of occasions and they'll talk to staff to ensure that they have the particulars as they advance through their process and they advance through their application. So of course, government staff would be talking to representatives of the organization, and that's why I say this is a silly game. The reality is that I have not met with Silica Sands. None of my political staff have met with Silica Sands, and I'm only aware of one meeting that a deputy minister or at a deputy level that had met with Silica Sands, and that was to review the process and to answer some questions. And that's what we're here for. We want to ensure the safety of Manitobans. So we will ensure that we provide clarity anytime it's required to the policies and to the legislation, because our job is to enforce legislation. We enforce the Environmental Act, and we will make sure that everyone is aware of the details so that when we make enforcements or make decisions, that it's based on scientific fact and not political partisanship.
Member from Fort Garry.
Wondering if the minister can advise whether or not he's had any discussions or any meetings with David Philman since becoming the minister.
Minister of Environment and Climate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if I have met with David Philman was the question. Again, not an efficient use of taxpayer money that all of us are getting paid to review the budget, but happy to answer, no, I have not.
Member from Fort Garry.
Has his political staff had any discussions or met with David Philman?
Minister of Environment and Climate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And again, I want to make it clear to the taxpayers paying, well, just in this room alone, hundreds of thousands of dollars per year to review and manage how their money is spent. And we have spent next to no time understanding what the expenditures are in the Environment and Climate Department. We instead are on a fishing expedition, which I've been privy to several times, not only as a media person, but watching from afar. And again, it goes back to what the Winnipeg Sun said, that most comments are driven entirely by government. It's called spin and propaganda, and that's what we're seeing here. None of my political staff have ever met with this gentleman, and I'm not sure why they would, to be quite honest. But obviously, this is something that I recall sitting in on the economic development process, and something the NDP want to use in some political way. But let me be clear to the residents. This is about a project that is before a Clean Environment Commission, experts. And we are now in Section 35 consultations with Indigenous groups and communities. We are waiting evidence, information, and content from you, the people that pay our salaries, to ensure that the decision made is the right decision, that it's based on facts, and it's based on science, and it's based on evidence. We will not ignore the evidence, we will not ignore the facts, and we will not make your drinking water political.
The member from Fort Garry.
Here's some facts for the minister. David Philman is the son of former PC Premier Gary Philman. He's also a partner at MLT Aikens Law Firm in Winnipeg. He also happens to be a board member for CO Silica Mine. And I'm wondering if the minister can advise whether he was aware that a prominent member of the PC party has a direct financial interest in this project.
Minister of Environment and Climate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And unfortunately, I've witnessed the personal attacks and falsehoods of political MLAs or other elected officials during my short time in politics, because I guess, as noted by members of the opposition, I fight back on that. I'm not sure what the personal feelings are or relationship between the member opposite and Mr. Philman, nor do I think it has any relevance on the CO Silica decision, because that, again, I'll reinforce this because I don't want residents to be played as pawns in a political game. This is very important to us, and in fact, ensuring Manitoba's drinking water supplies provide safe drinking water from source to tap is a main priority. And you know this from my work to have the City of Winnipeg act immediately to reduce the phosphorus. You know this from my work with my colleague and close friend, Brian Mays, also a member of the NDP party, to eliminate and to work towards the elimination of combined sewers. You know this because we've launched a task force to address the North End treatment plant. My record is there. The personal feelings towards an individual and trying to put some relevance behind that is unnecessary and a waste of your tax dollars and time. The reality is, through legislation and supporting policies, we regulate approximately 1,000 drinking water systems and also provide guidance, technical expertise, up-to-date information, and education materials about water safety to water suppliers and the public on a regular basis. Our staff are experts. Our staff believe in what they do, and they will ensure that no decision will be made. Nothing will be made until the consultations are done, and that includes the Section 35 consultations with our Indigenous leaders and our Indigenous communities. And they will base their decision on evidence, not names that are being thrown around for whatever personal purpose. I don't understand that, and I don't want to play into that. I want to think about the residents that are very concerned about an application that's come forward, and I want to ensure those residents that the proper decision is our top priority.
Member from Fort Garry.
The minister didn't answer my question. I think the residents of Southeast Manitoba want to know this. Was he aware that a prominent member of the PC party had a direct financial interest in this project?
Minister of Environment and Climate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Once again, I want it on the record for residents watching, my apologies, that there is no relevance to this line of questioning whatsoever, that the decision will not be based on any one individual or any politician like the NDP have proven to do in the past. They have shown that on a couple of occasions by ignoring the Clean Environment Commission and by not listening to residents or Indigenous community or in fact scientists when it came to the Kias project. This decision will be made based on evidence. This decision will be made by experts. This decision is not made on political ramblings of trying to make somebody guilty by association. That's just a waste of your time and the taxpayers' time. These staff are professionals at what they do. They're here to answer questions and help me answer questions that are important to you so that you get the facts. I will continue to sit here and provide the facts and not play politics.
The member from Fort Garry.
Well, the minister can start with providing the fact of whether or not he was aware that a prominent member of the PC party has a direct financial interest in CO Silica.
Minister of Environment and Climate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and again to my colleague who is a professional at this, at spinning questions in a court of law. There is no relevance to this. An individual...
Order. The hour being 5 o'clock. Committee rise.